We're gonna make it to the top? Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Papa. One step at a time. I've been in Iceland for a couple of days now. We had an amazing day. We saw so many things, crazy landscapes. It's just such a beautiful place to be, and I'm so happy and blessed to be here. With that comes, you have to work for it. And here we are talking about the Vader 4 Pro from Flydigi. So I've been testing that controller at night when everybody sleeps, and today we're going to be talking a little bit more about it in all its glory. This is the Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Edition, but they also have a black one. By the way, there's going to be two that are going to be for giveaway. Stay tuned for how to participate. Of course, you have the 2 sticks here, and you have 4 buttons. You have 2 extras that can be remapped to just about anything else. You have your capture button, home button here, select start. Look at that. It sounds awesome and it feels awesome. The shoulders, and here you have the triggers, which have a dampening effect. In the back, you have 4 mappable paddles, and you also have these hair trigger switches. In comparison to the Apex 4, for example, you do not have. And when it comes to Hall effect sticks, there's a lot of things that are pros, a lot of things that are cons, but this controller does many things specifically to address some of the cons, and I'll explain why. Now, one thing that is special with this controller is this is not just design. You can actually turn these knobs, and what this will do when you turn them is change the tension of your sticks. If you're familiar with the Apex 4, you can basically do the exact same thing here, but rather than having to open up the back plate and use that little tool that they had to change the tension, you can use this little wheel that you have around the sticks to do that. From what I've been reading, this is a better system than what the Apex 4 has, and I would tend to agree. This controller doesn't have a swappable faceplate, so this is something that is unique to the Apex 4. It is compatible with Nintendo Switch, so you do have gyro. You do have a mount here for a cell phone, but that is sold separately. You have a USB-C connector to either use it wired or to charge, and then you have also these 2 little prongs at the bottom that you can have a Flydigi dock to dock it and charge it. It also comes with a dongle that will give you up to 1,000 hertz polling rate. Overall, great controller, amazing ergonomics. It basically feels like an Xbox controller when talking about the feel and hands. Much like the Xbox controller, you have rumble in your grip, but also your triggers. When talking about rumble, what you have here is pretty much the best quality rotary motor vibration. It's different than HD rumble. However, there's something that is very unique to this controller that I noticed is whenever I put it to the Nintendo Switch mode, which we'll get back to in a second, it vibrates, but not as much. It's a little smoother on the vibration, which makes me believe that they're tweaking the rotary motor specifically for that mode to give you a smoother experience when you power it up. So you want to hold the little home button here, and it'll power like so. The Vader 4 Pro that is black has a blue light rather than having an orange beige one. It's not just steady, there's a little bit of an effect. Very pretty. And when talking about the look of this special edition, which by the way, they will be launching on August 6th, which should be when that video launches, and there's going to be limited units on Amazon. So if you're interested in this specific model, you know, you probably want to jump on it as soon as possible. One thing I can say is it's very good quality printing. I don't know if it's going to come across on the glasses, but it looks awesome. They really did not cheap out on this quality. The looks is maybe not for everybody, but the quality 100% I can get behind it. You actually feel the texture when you rub your hand on it. Now, is that going to scuff and scratch easy over time and have the paint fade? Unfortunately, I wouldn't know. But as far as just looking at it, if you're a collector, if you want to have it on a shelf, it absolutely looks the part. And you even have like very subtle details. For example, here, there's a little bit of an arrow, same here. And the line continues here a little bit, but not as much on the other side. Probably one of the better looking controllers, if just maybe the aesthetic is not your style. But if it is, wow, amazing details. When talking about polling rate, so of course you have different modes, right? You have the Nintendo Switch mode, the PC mode, and then the Bluetooth. Just so you know, there were a few discrepancies that were noted in the controller subreddit. I'm running the latest firmware on this controller. I ran into something that felt odd, to say the least. First time I pulled it, I had very good numbers. In fact, the highest numbers I've ever recorded, but granted, I am not at home right now, so maybe it has something to do with the device that I'm benchmarking on. Now, when that said, the second time that I benched it, it actually clocked a little lower. Well, not a little actually, a category under. So then I tested it again with a much longer delayed test and a fourth time, and then from there it was consistent. Is there some glitch in the code still left? Possible. However, I want to commend Flydigi on addressing it the first time. They have done an absolute phenomenal job. They were very open to the criticism. They took it upon themselves to fix it, and the next day basically they had a firmware that fixed the problem, because that problem was noticeable before the firmware update. Now, other than that, you have the dongle mode, which basically performs exactly the same, maybe slightly under, but never to a point that it is meaningful versus being fully wired, as I was talking about a second ago. And then you have the Nintendo Switch mode, which also pulled extremely high. We're talking 500 Hertz overall. So this is amongst the highest benchmarking controllers that I've had on the Nintendo Switch mode. Oh, we're getting a little bit of gust here. I'm gonna give it a minute. I did say that this controller does more than many more on the market, and let's talk about that. Right after talking about today's giveaway, which will be for the two Vader 4 Pro Black, the winners will be decided on August 13th of 2024. You have to be living either in Canada or the United States to be eligible. All you have to do is comment on this video, and I will announce the winner 1 week after its release. Alright, so just to make it clear, what I'm doing here is explaining in layman terms what I understand to be what Flydigi software did with their sticks. And so if you have anything to add, please make sure to hit the comment box. I may have a few things wrong, but I believe for the most part that it should all be on point. First, I'll bring your attention to the top left. You'll have the PC mode, the test mode, and switch mode. So let's go over the switch mode, as a lot of what you'll see here is also the same in the PC mode. First, you have home, where you'll have an overview and just a quick adjust of your settings. Then you have buttons, where you can address mappings, as well as your 6 customizable buttons. Next, you have the joystick, where you can address the curve, the dead zones, etc. Then you have the trigger, which is the same as the joystick, but for triggers, as well as addressing your trigger vibration, which are off by default on the Switch. Then you have general, where you can address your RGB as well as your controller vibration. If you move to the test tab, that is where you test your pulling rate and your inputs, which again, I find the numbers to be skewed just a little bit, but nothing all too worrying. Then you have the PC tab, where you can address your gyro. You have options between the FPS mode and racing mode. I believe the FPS mode to be able to use the Y and Z axis, whereas the racing mode should probably utilize the Y and X axis. And by the way, this is the gyro specifically for PC mode, and you can tell the software if you want the gyro to control your left stick or your right stick. When looking at the joystick, here we see an option that wasn't there in the Switch mode, which is circular versus rectangle. I'm gonna borrow from Asmon's Gold playbook and draw on screen. So when talking about your axis, you have 255 values by default. Y axis, which is the vertical one, and then we're looking at the X axis, which is horizontal. When thinking of a stick, the way that they're designed, you can go 255 on, basically you can reach each corners. But physically speaking, a stick is not a square, it is a circle. What you used to have would literally be cutting around the square and losing those values at the corner. The problem with that is some games actually register these values, and that can impact your character moving in games. We don't really see that nowadays. Instead, what we see is, if you've ever heard of the liquify tool in Photoshop, where it is used to change the waist of people or change the features on one's face, it's basically the same thing. We're taking a square and trying to make it fit into a circle. Now, the thing with Hall effect versus ALPS is Hall effect is digital, whereas ALPS is analog. Now, you could argue that, well, a controller is pretty much always digital nowadays, and that is in fact the case. However, the reading that goes to the board is not, it is analog. When talking about Hall effect, it is digital. And so when looking at digital data, especially in a liquefied quote unquote scenario, you're losing joystick resolution or joystick clarity. That'll make sense in a minute. We'll get back to that. Now, when you click on the function setting at the bottom left, that's where it gets extremely interesting. Here you have the joystick debump. So what this does is it addresses the oversensitive nature of Hall effect sticks. Look and see what happens if I put it on versus having it off. You see that the numbers jitter and jump all over the place. Now, the joystick automatic calibration addresses the center readjusting itself, and the reason being that Hall Effect use a sensor to read a magnet's position. And so, especially down the center where it is meant to reset in most cases your sticks, it can create misreads, especially if you want to lower your dead zones. So the automatic calibration, what it does is after a few seconds, 1 or 2 if I'm not mistaken, it will automatically put your stick back at absolute minimum value, which will prevent any drift, any kind of weird situation, especially if you have your dead zones lowered. Then you have the joystick accuracy, which is often called the joystick clarity or the joystick resolution, and that addresses what we were saying with the liquefy tool. And one thing very particular that Flydigi does with their controllers, and they claim to have a specific chip for the sticks, which honestly I can believe considering how amazing these sticks are. You have the possibility to change it between 8-bit to 12-bit. Now, the thing with ALPS being analog, it doesn't have the clarity of these sticks. These sticks are way superior, but the nature that it is being analog gave a more clear and consistent reading overall, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people still prefer ALPS. I'm one of them. However, with the 8-bit versus up to 12-bit, the precision that you get on top of the algorithm that Hall Effect has built for these sticks completely demolishes not only the precision that you have with ALPS, but also gives it back that nature, that kind of pleasant feel where it is very consistent and it is as you'd expect it when moving your sticks. And that is what the joystick accuracy does. So for people playing competitive FPS games, it is absolutely game changer because of the quality of these sticks. Then you have the joystick pulling rate, which is something you probably have heard before, which addresses the number of times that your controller will speak to your computer as you play. Next, you have the joystick center sensitivity. So we go back to do you prefer for your center to be reset, to reset your sticks, or do you want something that is extremely precise for micro movement? You can address that in the center sensitivity. Then you have the joystick rebounce algorithm, something very popular in the Smash community. So watch what happens when I pull my stick to the left and I let it go, with the feature on and with the feature off. You'll notice that when the feature is off, your stick moves way faster, but it also kind of slings back in the opposite direction, causing a bounce effect, which can cause your characters to move or have misreads that are not intended, especially in fighting games, but also in FPSs. The rebounce algorithm, what it'll do is before your stick actually goes back, even though it physically did and it bounced the other way, it will make it so that you're reading slowly, not slowly, but it will come back in a way that it will prevent that sling to the other side. So this is something that, if you're a high performance, highly competitive FPS player, you probably don't want to have it on. But if you are a Smash player, for example, that is something you probably will want to use. So, that depends on the games. If playing a platformer, it's probably something you'd want to have on as well. And so that is why Flydigi officially provides the absolute best Hall Effect sticks that we have seen to date on the market. What they have done with their chip is completely out of this world and puts everything else to shame. Now, of course, this one does a few things over the Apex 4, but all the same, the Apex 4 does have a few advantages over this one as well. So it all comes down to what features you're looking for and what you want to buy. Ultimately, you just go for whatever works best for you, but you can definitely buy this knowing that you're getting pretty much the absolute best that the market has to offer, at least for the time being. It is an impressive controller. Once again, Flydigi, they just keep impressing the entire market, and it's incredible what they pump out in terms of product, extremely high quality. And sometimes you have those products that in terms of software do phenomenal, but the quality, the physical quality of the product doesn't match the software side of things. On this one, you are covered on all grounds. It's absolutely killer, great product, highly recommended. And so if you have any questions, you know how to reach me, but until then, I'm gonna continue on my trip. Enjoy the land of Iceland, such a beautiful place to be, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Thank you for watching. Peace. Yep, we made it.